China's birth rate is dropping, and it's hot guys in video games and literature's fault. Apparently, a couple years back, there was a huge crackdown on boys love literature from Chinese authors, banning lots of it and even arresting creators. But now they're potentially taking away straight boys too. Love and Deepspace has been in some insanely hot water after trying to add their 6th character, who is a hot wolf man named Valko, and the community exploded. However, this issue was not due to the furry man alone. It's due to a long-standing lack of care by the developers treating its players poorly, now leading to the powder keg blowing up in their faces. Many are also scared the Chinese government might be getting involved, since this game apparently has the power to potentially end the human race by making women's standards for men way too high. But how did things get to this point? Well, fortunately, I was there on ground zero. Love and Deepspace is the most popular parasocial gacha aimed at women, but since it was June, I decided this was the perfect time to try the game. If only I had known what an absolute train wreck was about to begin. The first day I decided to play the game also happened to be the date of a big live stream with new content. I knew barely anything about the game and decided to watch it, and unfortunately, it was one of the worst live streams I've ever seen. It was a newscast with 2 robots that would show the moon for 5 minutes at a time, then pan back to the robots where they'd say, "Big footprints are found, stay indoors," then go back to the moon, over and over. This lasted like half an hour, showing nothing, to the point that some viewers thought it was over. The chat was abuzz with talk of werewolves and male pregnancy, as one does. Then, the big reveal. The Wolfman was unwanted. Immediately, people started trashing him online, saying he's ugly and lame, continually harassing the game's developer, Infold. What was only words eventually shifted to people harassing the direct offices, even sending cow dung and spiritual items representing death in the mailbox. And the company had to hire security out front and close off the area. In the West, when players get mad at a game, they forget in a week at most. In Asia, they remember how they were wrong for 3 dynasties. As the pressure mounted, Infold made a decision. They decided to completely remove Valko and never introduce another new character to the roster, and only focus on the current 5 characters. This overall summarizes some of the drama seen online, but there's a lot of other facets to the story that many may not know. Firstly, what even is Love and Deepspace? It's a first-person POV otome visual novel for 90% of it, with the remaining 10% being an arena action game where you fight with your favorite characters against monsters. Honestly, almost no one has seen the action at all, as all you see online is half-naked men interacting with the Donghua Jade Beauty main character. The action is really nothing special, however some of the character versions have some cool animations. The game is only for phones, so it isn't really looking for anything really deep in the combat. Now let's get to the main game, The Boys. What this game does exceptionally well compared to most other games of its type is the cutscene quality and the intimacy. There's 5 total characters, and they all have varying personalities, backstories, and abilities, but the only thing that really matters is Silas, because he's easily the best of the 5. I have an issue with seeing male beauty. It's something I've never really been able to spot super well, but when I saw Silas, I went, oh. Obviously, I'd put the rankings at Silas, then Caleb, then Zane, then Raphael, then Xavier. Tell me if you disagree. Rest in peace, Valko. However, even though the game is incredibly popular with an insane audience, there's been trouble brewing with the game for a long time. For one, the game is insanely stingy. There's a reason the game makes so much money when it spams character banners while not giving enough currency for players to actually get what they want. The rates aren't very amazing either. As a new player, I barely felt as though I was receiving pulls. What's even worse is the game is stingy spending their money. Apparently, characters like Caleb hadn't even gotten a new story in over 500 days in a story-based game. The game's only been out for 2 years and he's 1/5 of the entire cast. If you're a fan of the character, the only real content you got was spending money on him like he's from a host club. The issue with many gacha games is you can obviously feel as though none of the money made is ever being reincorporated back into the game you love. It only goes to the top dog's pockets. Speaking of which, introducing a new character would only have diluted the character pool from 20% to 16.6%. The best part of all of this isn't the first time Infold is screwed up due to being out of touch. This is the second big drama I remember. They're also the developers of a game called Infinity Nikki. Infinity Nikki is an open world comfy game of running around a world and dressing up your character, to keep it real simple. However, even this seemingly innocent looking game had a crappy update that retconned the story, increased the pity of 2 new entire banners, reneged on promised polls to the players and caused constant game crashes on PS5 and mobile. They also locked a highly anticipated new outfit dyeing system behind a new currency you'd need to buy. If you think all this sounds pretty bad, it's just a tale as old as time for gacha games. In the game, you had to pull for outfit pieces, and it was normally up to 10 pieces, but now there were 11, meaning you'd need 20 more pulls to pity the whole outfit, and you'd need the entire outfit for its abilities. They also had a Steam wishlist reward promised after 100,000 wishlists, but after hitting it, they moved it to 200,000. Now after all this, they apologized, gave some pulls, promised to do better. We're so sorry. Now back to the entire Valko incident. It seems awfully familiar. Many in China did not like his design or personality for a number of reasons, but if the players were happy, it probably wouldn't have led to this. It eventually got so bad that the developers made a giant post covering all the drama and deciding they would not add Valko to the game. But now we see lots of people supporting Valko, wanting him to be released. Even Queso recently said he needs to be added despite him not really knowing anything about the game, which was pretty funny.
The hate got so out of hand that the haters sent literal cow dookie to the game company's office. Well, I hope that Valko situation gets sorted for y'all. Not gonna lie, I don't know what the game is, but...
However, there was also a sad message written by the developers of Valko saying how heartbroken they were after all their work crafting a character was for nothing, saying, "I raised him from birth and witnessed his death." Fireline. Now, where does the Chinese government come in? Well, it's no secret that the government keeps a pulse on things going on in the gaming sphere. This is not the first nor the last we'll hear of this, since recently they completely butchered the gacha game Snowbreak, causing extensive censorship. One of the most gooner games anyone had ever seen tried to do a collaboration with the Chinese post office for some really weird reason, making postcards of the characters. Well, people reported it, and when the government looked into the game, they were not happy. The game was completely taken down for it to be changed, and when it came back, it was a gooner game no longer, with everything players had paid for censored. Icarus had flown too close to the sun. Ironically, this game's community and Love and Deepspace were at odds, so many Snowbreak players are actually preying on the downfall of Infold. One common occurrence in China is players reporting games they don't like to the government, so they have to investigate, and if anything wrong is found, there could be serious consequences. Well, this entire controversy caught their eyes. The government actually made a public written statement about Valko, saying he was dangerous, promoting disregarding public order and morality by breaking into the main character's house in his story. Games have to walk a fine line to not be seen as promoting bad behavior. This wouldn't be the first time a character has done something questionable, as Silas basically kidnaps you and forces you to shoot him in the chest with a gun. But he's hot, so I guess that's fine. Now, this brings up some concerns already. The government is not a huge fan of otome games and regulates them heavily, such as not allowing men to be too effeminate or how they dress. Having their attention on your game is one of the worst things possible. Now you have to walk on eggshells, and anyone who doesn't like your game will report anything as being bad and twisted in a nasty way. There are some rumors circulating that someone high up wants the entire game axed and wants all otome games removed. However, this is still not confirmed completely. However, Love and Deepspace recently removed themselves from a huge convention called Bilibili World, which was unexpected. They probably don't allow them to do the same things as what happens at Anime Expo, where you can touch a man's chest and pull his collar chain. Another large rumor is that games like these could be banned due to declining birth rates, and women won't get married due to these games. We commonly see games and online activity blamed on many societal issues, and this one's been getting shared around a lot. It's over, everyone. This game's gonna end the human race. How the hell am I gonna compete with that? Obviously, this is a ridiculous notion and doesn't have anything to do with an actual reason why there are no babies, but you'll most likely hear this reason at least once related to why there isn't more of this style of game. Doesn't it seem weird there aren't more otome games if they make money hand over fist like Love and Deepspace? This is just speculation, but I'd assume that either developers don't want to invest in something that could be banned, or it's difficult to get approval for this type of game. There are still some that release, but it's possible they see the writing on the wall and don't feel safe spending time and money on something that has a dubious future. If the rumors are true, it's very possible we'll actually see a ban of otome games someday in the future, with statements saying it declines women's health and causes them not to start families, but it's really impossible to foresee. Generally, if products make large amounts of money and increase the country's fame, they'll give them some leeway. However, there's no way they would ever want an otome game to represent the country anyway globally, no matter how popular. Time will only tell how this situation situation will eventually evolve. But for the time being, this style of game needs to stay a little bit under the radar if they don't want to get hit by a nuclear bomb like Snowbreak. Hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel for more, and I hope to see you next time.